All right, event trader coming on here. It is Monday morning, 11 a.m. A couple past 11 a.m. Apologies for that, but of course we are now going to welcome in our policy analyst Carmine Atteo to talk a little bit about the financial markets, what's going on in the government, and how it could be impacting your portfolio and wallet. So, without any further ado, Carmine, how are you doing today, buddy?
Oh, pretty good, Gavin. How was your weekend?
Good. That's good. Nothing too exciting over here on my end. How about yourself?
The tables were great, so I was happy.
A lot of people there, huh?
Yeah, I mean the weather's getting colder, so that's usually when things could pick up, and it's pretty much the same as last year at this time. I would say.
Yeah. Um, how's risk out there? Would you say?
I mean, this is an addiction, so I always kind of keep that in mind. But it seems to be the same as um, every year I've been playing. I don't really see any difference between last year and this year. You see differences between the summer and the winter, depending on when tax refunds come in and stuff like that. But year over year, I really don't see much difference.
All right. Well, keep an eye out on that. Did you happen to catch the Macau gaming revenue at all
I
today?
saw a little. I saw a little bit of that. What was it? What was the details?
Better than expected,
Oh,
so it was a
nice,
pretty
nice.
strong
Yeah,
number.
yeah.
But
Las
but
Vegas
yeah,
is.
I mean, go
Yeah,
ahead,
go ahead.
Carmen. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Well, one of the things I was going to ask you about, what do you think of this divergence between Las Vegas Sands and MGM?
Yeah, because
If
if
you,
you look at Las Vegas Sands is much more Macau focused, and MGM is much more Las Vegas focused, and Las Vegas has been struggling the last few years. So, uh, you know, yeah, I think it's a lot to do with a lot of the nickel and dime. I mean, it's very expensive to take a vacation to Las Vegas, and I mean, if you don't have like comps for food and stuff, you're spending $80 on breakfast for two people. I'm not even kidding. And sometimes even more than that. And dinners, forget it. I mean, one person's over $100 if you want to go to a restaurant and eat anything decent besides like fast food or whatever. So it's become very very expensive, and I think a lot of the hotels are kind of realizing this now and trying to cater more to the lower income consumer. You saw a couple hotels pop up that are more generated at that, but also you're seeing hotels pop up that are more generated at a high income consumer. And that's I'm afraid that Las Vegas is going to become just a playground for the rich, basically. Like soon that's where it's kind of headed, because you have so many other places now where you can gamble. You've got you know a lot of local areas are having casinos. Like I live in Chicago, there's several casinos now. There's really no reason, for an average person. I like to go to Vegas because I think Vegas is a great place. But if it's for an average person, there's really no reason for them to go there, just to gamble. So because you can gamble in your hometown. So, and that's the case for a lot of people, I think, and I think that's hurting Vegas more than anything.
yeah, certainly the sports book. I mean, for me, Carmine, I'm not a big card player, but I do love to gamble on sports.
Yep.
And one of my favorite things about going to Vegas was I'd go throw a few bets down and then get hammered in the sports bar and stuff.
Yeah.
And can't do that anymore, right? They don't copy the drinks anymore in the sport. I mean, I suppose if you're spending enough money, they would. But
Yeah. I mean, if you're
so for DraftKings for me, and then I could get down. Even then, I've just never been a big card guy, so I'm
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
not
but that's
the.
that's definitely a big factor as well, because of the expansion of sports betting. Because Vegas, like 10 years ago, used to be the only place besides Montana where you can gamble on sports. But you could gamble on sports practically everywhere. There's still some states where it's not legal, but most states now have it. So, uh, that's another aspect of it too.
Yeah, yeah. So, but I just thought it was interesting. To Look at the charts of LVS and MGM. You'd think that
Yeah,
they'd be
for
a little
sure.
bit more correlated than they are, but they're. I think it's like a 0.85 inverse correlation or something. So anyway, we'll keep an eye out, and as we are keeping an eye out on the markets, which the S&P is back to flat here right now. So we'll watch that as we're chatting with Carmine. But let's break into some of the events going on, Carmine, and perhaps the biggest event for the week is going to be these tariff hearings on Wednesday. So why don't you give us a little bit of detail about what's going on there, and then we'll talk about some of the expectations.
Yeah, so the Supreme Court's going to hear a case called titled Trump versus VOS Selections. VOS Selections is a small wine company. They took their case all the way to the Supreme Court. They're about to get a lot of publicity. I'm sure they'll get a lot of extra business too. So they, they're going to hear this case on Wednesday at 10 o'clock. So basically, obviously the Supreme Court has 9 members, so you need 5 for a majority. Uh, it appears most court watchers think, and I posted a kind of a preview on the Supreme Court hearing if anybody's interested at 10:02 under SPY. But uh, most court watchers think that Clarence Thomas, Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh will all vote to uphold Trump's AIPA tariff authority. But Lena Kagan, Sotomayor, and Kanji Brown Jackson will all vote to end the tariff authority. So basically, you have 4 votes pretty much locked in on yes and to uphold it, and 3 votes locked in to discontinue it. So there's 2 justices that are probably going to be the swing votes. Now, again, this is not guaranteed. There might be more swing justices come up after the hearing. We'll see. But most people think that these 2 will probably be the key here, and that's Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts. So Trump's lawyers really only need one of them to vote in favor of the tariffs to get the tariffs upheld. But if they both vote against it, then the tariffs are struck down, and assuming everybody else goes the way they are. Now, the thing with Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts is they're very likely to go the same direction, in my opinion. It's unlikely to me that they'll split up. So if you see, it's more likely that you'll be a five. It'll be a 5-4 ruling, or a 5-4 against ruling, or a 6-3 in favor ruling, rather than a where those 2 justices are split up. So one of the key things to watch, I think, is going to be, so if you ever watched any of these before, it basically they start out with kind of a summary of the case, which is kind of dull. But they read the they read the briefs and everything, that puts a lot of people to sleep. But after that, the kind of the exciting part happens, where the lawyers come in and they get to ask the justices questions. Now, the type of questions that the justices ask will be very important, because let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that you see Amy Coney Barrett and John Roberts. They're really, really tough on Trump's lawyers, but they seem to be kind of siding a little bit with the lawyers for VOS selections. That's a tell. But now, on the other hand, let's say they're really, really tough on the VOS selections. They're asking them really, really tough questions, and they're kind of asking really easy questions to Trump's lawyers. That's kind of a tell that they're leaning towards upholding the tariffs. So you have to kind of watch these justices. Sometimes they have a poker face where they really can't tell which way they're leaning, but a lot of times it's really, really obvious which way they're leaning. So that's kind of what I'll be watching for when this starts at 10 o'clock Eastern time on Wednesday. It will be broadcast live. We'll be covering it on the site, and it will be able to see. Now, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Go ahead. I think you had a question about expectations.
Yeah, so kind of where do you stand? How do you think this is going to roll out? What type of timeline should we be looking at, Carmine?
Yeah, so I think my base case right now is that tariffs will get struck down, but it's going to be very close. This is not something I have a high degree of confidence in. There's a few predictions later in the show that I have a much higher degree of confidence in, and we'll talk about those later. But this is something that I could really go either way. But I'm leaning right now towards them getting struck down, and the reason is because I think that a lot of these folks, John Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett, um, comes from the more constitutional establishment wing of the Republican Party. They're far less, MAGA oriented. So I think they'll be more leaning towards, striking down the tariffs in this scenario. But we'll see. Trump's lawyers might make such a good argument that they say, okay, we're going to keep these on, and then they'll be on. But the decision is probably more than likely going to be in a few weeks. So you'll see the hearing conclude on Wednesday. There'll be a bunch of articles saying Supreme Court seems divided on tariffs, or Supreme Court seems likely to uphold the tariffs, or Supreme Court seems likely to object to tariffs because the reporters there are basically kind of reading the tea leaves and saying, okay, they are likely to do this, but we don't know for sure until they rule, which is going to be in about a few weeks. So I would expect a ruling probably in early to mid December on this, because they said they're not going to wait until June like they normally do. They're going to do a fast track situation. So yeah, so that's my expectation for it, that they'll get struck down.
Okay, so we'll be now. Will they be forced to refund? I guess
Yeah,
that's
so
kind of one of the big
that's a
questions.
very good question. So um, a lot of people say that if they get struck down, they'll be forced to refund. I'm going to take the other side of that. I'm going to say that they're going to say there's a middle ground that they can take. They don't have to order the Treasury to refund them. They could say, okay, well, the tariffs are illegal, but let bygones be bygones. We'll just wash our hands with the rest, whatever happened before, and you guys don't have to refund anything, but you can't do anything more. I think that's a very likely scenario. And if they do order them to refund, um, then it's negative for the bond market because you'll see that revenue come out of the Treasury. But if they don't um, order them a refund and they keep the tariffs down, then I think it's positive for stocks because you'll get the benefit of not having the tariffs. Also, you'll get the benefit of the previous revenue not being refunded. So you won't get any more revenue unless there's other ways that Trump could put tariffs on, which we'll talk about in a second. But uh, and of course, this is not all the tariffs; these are just the AIPA tariffs, that like the auto tariffs, and things like that, will still be on regardless of this. But so there'll be some revenue coming into the Treasury, but not nearly as much as they had been. But the refund thing, a lot of people say, it has to go one. If they strike them down, they have to order a refund. No, they don't. They could say, okay, strike them these down, but we're not ordering a refund. They could very easily do that. That's up to the justices.
All right, so Carmine, with this, what are the industries most impacted by this ruling? Auto, I know you mentioned.
Yeah, well, auto's going to be on no matter what because those are the sectoral Pacific tariffs. But of course, you have retail, you have a lot of the industrials. Keep an eye on those. China ADRs as well. I think the retailers like Nike, Kohl's, all those folks. I think those are going to be really the ones to watch most likely on
Will
these
the de
because
minimis loophole be under this
so the de
ruling?
minimis loopholes was a part of the AIPA tariff authority. So if they strike that down,
Well, BABA could be a big
yeah,
winner.
Baba could be in play too, so keep an eye on those, and even Belly. So keep, but it's those stocks too. But we'll have to read the ruling though once it comes down in a few weeks because they might say, okay, I think this ruling is going to be very nuanced. It's not going to be like, okay, there's no tariffs are allowed, and everybody going along your merry way, you have to refund everything. I think it's going to be very nuanced. They're going to say, okay, they might say the Brazil tariffs. That's crazy that you could do that because of the former president getting indicted. They might say those are you can't do that, but you could do some of
Political, yeah.
these, or you can do some of these, or you have to refund these, but you don't have to refund these. I think it's going to be a very nuanced ruling. It's not going to be black and white. So that's one thing to keep in mind, especially with what you mentioned with with Baba there. If they say that the minimus ruling stays, then it's negative for Baba. But if they strike that down, then it's positive for Baba. So again, you have to watch out what exactly they do.
Yeah, and I guess with that in mind too, Carmine, you can be sure that everybody will be looking for those eye-catching headlines that the algos tune into.
Yeah,
So
I
it
mean,
could
I wouldn't. I mean, to
open
me, I
up
mean,
some arbitrage.
when this ruling comes out, just my advice to everybody is just kind of just take a breath and kind of wait and see, what the actual details are because you're going to see a headline strikes down tariffs. Does that mean
Yeah.
making everybody refund them? Maybe, maybe not. Does that mean that every single tariff is struck down? Maybe, maybe not. Does that mean the de minimis ruling is struck down? Maybe, maybe not. So you're going to have to see, what they do with each one of these, because these are so many different things, and they could pick and choose. They could, like I said, they could say Brazil, you can't do that, but but China, yeah, you know what? That's national security. We agree with you there. But so it just depends on what they would decide to do.
Yeah, yeah, it'll be interesting. So, but you figure by the end of November, a good chance you might get those
Well, yeah,
rulings
maybe
in.
early December. See, we're getting into the holiday. We're getting into Thanksgiving, so there might, there might be a little bit of a snafu because of that. So I'm saying early December, early to mid December.
Well, yeah, I mean that de minimis obviously for December factors in.
Yep,
See how
absolutely,
much they're taxing Santa, right?
exactly.
So, all right. See, there's a question, Carmine. Aren't the tariffs the purview of Congress? And if Congress is letting the president run with it, why would the Supreme Court go with that?
Well, so yeah, that's a good question. So you had this, you had there's going to be talking points by the VOS selections lawyers. So the first talking point they're going, well, I don't know if it'll be the first one, but the one of the main talking points that they'll have is that the Senate voted to cancel the AIPA authority. Now that's really a symbolic vote because it's never going to go anywhere in the House, and even if it did, they don't have the votes to override a presidential veto. But the problem with the VOS selections lawyers, you can bet, will make that a part of their arguments. They're going to say, okay, the Senate voted 51-47 to uh, take these tariffs down, and you guys should agree with them because the Constitution says that revenue is in charge of Congress. So that's going to be their argument. Trump's lawyers are going to say, well, that only passed one chamber and not one, and the House actually voted to kind of supersede the tariff authority of the president. So there's conflicting things there, and but so it depends on which side you're on, and that both sides are going to make those arguments, and we'll see which one wins out.
All right. Well, we'll be watching that closely now. Obviously, last week, one of the big parts of the trade conflict has, of course, been between China and the U.S., and we had that highly anticipated meeting between Xi and Trump at the APEC summit. Why don't you give us a recap of what went on there, and how do you see things playing out?
Yeah, so I think this was a pretty uh, interesting deal because I think the biggest thing for me about the deal is it's a 1 year truce, no more 3 months, no more a couple months here and there. It's a 1 year truce, and they're cutting the fentanyl tariff rate from 20 to 10. Now that means the all-in tariff rate is 45%. Uh, so basically, what that means is a 10% base tariff. You have a 25% from Trump's first term and 10% fentanyl. So fentanyl was 20, but now it's 10. So that's right. That's how you get the 45. So China said they're going to delay the rare earth export controls for 1 year. And 1 year suspension of the U.S. will have a 1 year suspension of Section 30 measures against China maritime shipbuilding. So that's a win for China. And also an agreement for China to purchase 12 million metric tons of U.S. soybeans this year and 25 million tons each year thereafter. That's through 2028, and that's a win for the Trump administration. Now we'll see if they actually follow through with all of this stuff. China has a history of saying that they're going to, buy a lot of soybeans and then saying they're not doing it. But we'll see if that happens or not. If they do, it's obviously a positive for Mosaic and Deere and a lot of the ag stocks. So keep an eye on those. President Trump, for his part, said he will meet again with Chinese President Xi in April. He'll travel to China for that, and then Xi is going to come to the U.S. as well for another meeting after that, probably next summer. So there's going to be more meetings and more uh, um, communication, obviously. But I think for the near term here, there's going to be at least some certainty in the trade front for China because you're going to have this. You have this 1 year pause. We have some certainty about what the tariff rate will be. Now, again, we just talked about the Supreme Court, so that's a whole other aspect of it. But let's just put that aside for now. But at least for this, for the actual trade negotiations, we do have some certainty now going forward, at least for a year, about what the tariff rates are going to be. Now, again, it could blow up at any minute. China could,
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say,
yeah,
Carmine. There's really not much certainty given anything that was agreed to, right?
yeah, that's the problem. So it could blow up at any minute. China could say, okay, we're not buying these soybeans. We're halting the rare earths again, and then we're back to square one with the tariff threats again. So that's something to keep in mind. So, but for now, I mean, this is the deal, and I think this is gonna, I wouldn't be surprised if this holds for at least until after the holidays, and then maybe when we get to next year, there might be some more volatility and risk surrounding it. But especially if we head towards a meeting in April. So, but I think for the rest of the year, I think we're fine.
Okay, so we'll be watching that. Carmine, follow-up question. What do you think the response of the market would be in the event that the Supreme Court ruled against the tariffs?
So, so I think that if they ask him to refund all the money, I think it would be negative for both stocks and bonds. If they strike them down, but say okay, let bygones be bygones. Whatever you collected before, you're fine. I think that'll be very positive for stocks because you'll have this you especially for retailers and things like that. You'll have more, because you won't have that uh, drag on the economy, so to speak, and more increases for inflation that the Fed will have to deal with, and the market might price in more rate cuts down the road. So I think it'll be very positive if, as long as they do not ask them to refund the money. But if they do, I think that might be negative. Because we
Okay,
saw
so
that
again,
because we saw that when the appeals court initial ruling happened and people were struck them down, you actually saw the market fall that day, the next day after that, because people were worried about refunding. Now, like I said, uh, you have to kind of disconnect the two, because just because they strike them down doesn't mean they're going to make them refund everything. That's going to be a separate, not a separate case altogether, but a separate aspect of it that we have to keep an eye on.
all right. So Carmine, the president was out talking with a number of different countries along the way in Asia. So what were some of the other events that came down?
So yeah, we have Japan. They kind of reaffirmed their $550 billion of U.S. investments, including we have General Electric, SoftBank, KMI, CAR, Panasonic, Toyota. They made some investments. They also said they're going to buy $8 billion worth of soybeans. I kind of trust them a lot more than I trust China on that front. So I think at least for Japan, I think they're going to follow through with that. You also had South Korea. They basically just reaffirmed the agreement that they had last year. So it really wasn't too new there, but the tariff rate for South Korea will remain at 15%. And one new thing that Trump said allow South Korea to build some nuclear powered submarines. That might be kind of a Taiwan play too. So we'll see there. Yep. And I think the trip, the rest of the Asia trip, I think was pretty good for Trump. I think he got kind of what he wanted. The China stuff, I think, is kind of just right now is kind of just wait and see. If they uphold all this stuff, then it's pretty good. If they don't, then we'll be back at square one.
All right. Anything else from that trip jump out to you at all, Carmine?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right. Let's talk about the real quick about the 60 minutes interview. Was there anything that stuck out to you from that? I mean, it seemed like it was pretty much in line with prior
Yeah,
commentary, but just curious if anything changed the math for you over there.
no, I mean they posted the entire thing, which was actually an hour and 20 minutes. So that's obviously more than 60 minutes. So they couldn't put that all on the air. But the parts they showed, I thought were pretty was pretty in line with what he's always said before. The interesting comments to me were on Taiwan. He really didn't say if he would defend them, but he said, they know what I would do, and he just kind of basically said, without saying as much, he kind of basically said, yeah, we're going to defend them if they do. So, but he talked about the Supreme Court case. He said he reiterated his view that the economy will be hurt if the tariffs will go on, and he said he's not going to go to the hearing. He said that would just cause too much attention on himself and not attention on the justices, which is I think is the right thing to do there. So yeah, nothing really too earth shattering from the 60 Minutes interview other than the Taiwan stuff and the Nvidia. He reiterated too that he's not going to allow the U.S. or Nvidia to sell the Blackwell chips to China. Uh, and so that's would be negative for Nvidia, but I think a positive for U.S. national security and AI development.
All right. Okay, Carmine, we've got some elections this
Yep.
week, which certainly regional in nature, but could carry some bigger significance on the national side of things. I know you're watching it closely with just about a year left until we get those midterms. So, what should we be watching here tomorrow? What are some of your expectations?
Yeah, so let's start off with the New York City mayor race. I think Zoran Mandami is going to win. I think he's a clear favorite. There was some polls out last week that the Cuomo folks kind of got excited about because he moved down from about 15 points to about 10. There was one even poll where he was down six, and so that the problem with that type of thinking is that once you're outside the margin of error, you're really 80% chance you're going to lose, right? So if you're up by 15 or down by 15, and then you're down by 10, there's really not much difference between those two. You're still at plus you're still at a 90% chance you're going to lose, no matter if you're at 10 or 15. So yeah, I mean, it sounds better that you're down 10, rather be down 10 than down 15, but in actuality, it really doesn't make that much of a difference. So I think that Mandami is going to be the next mayor of New York City, which would be negative, I think, for apartment REITs. I think negative also for Uber, for Lyft, because if there's going to be free buses, that might impact Uber and Lyft because I think that they have a pretty big footprint in New York City because a lot of people don't own their own cars. So that could be negative for them as well. So keep an eye on, especially those real estate names. You have NYC, you have ESRT, and several others there. Keep an eye on those apartment rates because he's promised to freeze the rent for subsidized apartments. Now he really can't do that right away. He's going to have to fire everybody on the board and then put his own people on the board, and then he can do it. But right now, the rent relations board, whatever they call it over there, is stacked with people that are probably against it. But once he gets in there, he can fire them, and then put his own people in, and that's basically what he's promised to do. So, we'll keep an eye on that. But I think Madami will be the next mayor of New York City. I just don't see. I think if he gets under 50%, you're going to see a lot of blame directed at Curtis Sliwa, the Republican candidate, for not getting out of the race out of the race at all, and you're also going to get a lot of blame directed towards Eric Adams for not getting out of the race sooner, because but Eric Adams is still on the ballot. So believe it or not, there's going to be a lot of people that still vote for. I mean, not a lot, but there's going to be maybe 2 or 3% of people that still vote for Eric Adams. Believe it or not. So that's another issue there as well. So uh, yeah, so I think it's gonna be pretty clear.
Are there any particular levels you're looking at, Carmine, in terms of margin of victory?
I'm looking at probably in the low double digit range. If he gets over 50, that's really momentous. I think there'll be a lot of talk in the Democratic Party about like this is our future. So I'm watching that 50% mark very closely. Because then obviously you can't blame Curtis Sliwa or Eric Adams because he got over 50. So, but so yeah, that's what I'll be watching there. But I'm expecting a low double digit win by Mandami.
All right. What about New Jersey? I know you said that there's some early polling that's catching your interest there.
Yeah, so if you look at the polling history of New Jersey, it's not stellar, right? So you had the current governor uh, was projected to win New Jersey last time by about 8 points, and he ended up winning by three. Trump was projected to lose New Jersey by 15 in 2024. He lost it by five. So if you look at that, you might say, well, because all the polling's they're only like 3 or 4 points. Ciccarelli's only 3 or 4 points down from Mickey Sherrill. He might have a chance if the polls are off the same amount as they were before. But the problem with that is this: I always like to look at the early voting data. This is how I made my predictions in 2024, and if you look at the early voting data for New Jersey, um, Mickey Sherrill is outpacing. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say Mickey Sherrill. The Democrat. So they put out early voting data by party registration. So they break it down from Democrat, Republican, Independent, right? So we don't know exactly who people voted for, but the vast majority of people who are registered Democrats are going to vote Democrat. The vast majority of people who are registered Republicans are going to vote Republican. So you can kind of tell, which way everybody's leaning. So the Democrats had a +5 in early vote, in-person early voting in in 2024 when Trump lost the state by five. So now they're at +9. So that is a little bit of 4 point overperformance from where Trump was for the from where, or I should say, from where Vice President Harris was. So if you look at that, I think that Mickey Sherrill will win the New Jersey governor race by mid single digits, probably maybe 4 to 6%. Now, the one wild card is the independent vote because Jack Ciattarelli is expected to get do better among independents than Trump did. So that could swing a little bit more votes this way. So that's why I'm saying probably I would say probably Mickey Sherrill, the Democrat, wins by 4 to 6% in New Jersey there. But we'll see. The betting markets show about an 87% chance that Mickey Sherrill will win. Uh, but there was an 87% chance that the Bengals would win against the Bears yesterday, and they blew that. So we'll see. Anything can happen. So, but this is going to be a lot closer than one in Virginia. I think the governor race in Virginia is pretty locked up for Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat there. I don't think the Republican Winsome Sears has much of a chance there. So we'll keep an eye on those.
Okay. Well, for the Democrats' sake, I hope they have a better defense than the Bengals do. That's for sure. So looking at California, they got a Prop 50 vote that's going on that should be interesting. Carmine, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this is kind of their Gavin Newsom's rebuttal, so to speak, to all the Republican redistricting that's going on. This Prop 50 will allow California to change 5 Republican leaning seats to 5 Democrat leaning seats. So it's very likely to pass. Republicans are barely spending any money on this, so this is going to be an absolute blowout. It's probably going to be a 20 point, win for Gavin Newsom there on Prop 50. So once that passes, they're going to they will be able to change their map to change 5 seats over. Now, the problem for the Democrats is on this redistricting is they're probably going to come out behind because you have Texas 5 seats, North Carolina 1, Missouri 1, Ohio 2, Indiana 2. So yeah, California is helping with 5, but you're still getting 5 behind. Republicans are still gaining seats, so to speak, from the redistricting effort. But it's probably not going to be enough for them to take control of the House because I think that if you look at Cook Political Report, they have about 216 seats right now leaning Republican, and you need 218 to win, right? So, normally in midterm years where there's the party out of power loses all the toss-ups. So there's 18 toss-up seats according to Cook Political Report. So I expect all those to go to the Democrats. So I still expect the House to go Democratic but it'll be a very small margin because of all this redistricting.
Okay, so just keeping an eye too here on the markets, Carmine. Good battle going on just below that 68.83 area that we were watching all last week. So keep an eye out on that. See if the bulls can continue to edge us higher here while Carmine and I are talking. All right, Carmine. So we've gone through just about everything here. Uh, Government shutdown. Obviously, we are getting close to that record. We haven't hit the record yet, right?
No, so today's the record. So tomorrow we'll have a longest shutdown in history.
Okay. Trump will own the top two then, right?
Yeah, he'll have number one and number two with a gold and silver medal.
All right. So now, what could get things cracking? Obviously, we got elections tomorrow.
Yeah.
Are you looking at that as a read through on where people view the shutdown and thus could get people to act? What's your thought process there?
Yeah, I still think it's going to be the week before Thanksgiving. A lot of people are saying, well, they might, after the elections, they might decide, okay, come to a deal. I just don't see that because I think that, New Jersey is going to be close for a blue state, and so the Republicans will hang their hat on that. The Democrats will hang their hat on that they won both, so it really not going to get anywhere with that. And uh, I just think they're going to continue to be where they are because I think that last week I predicted that it's going to be the week before Thanksgiving. And that's because of air travel, right? So up until now, up until recently, it was. I'm not trying to disparage anybody here, but it was just basically the government workers who were impacted by the government shutdown, right? It wasn't people that work in the private sector. But when you talk about food stamp benefits and you talk about airlines getting delayed or canceled during the holiday season, that impacts people that work in the private sector, and that's a far bigger share of the population. So that's where I think that things will get resolved is a week before Thanksgiving, and I continue to stand by that. President Trump, for his part, he talked about on a 60 Minutes interview, he talked about ending the filibuster to reopen government. John Dune has come out right away and said that he doesn't have support for that. But that's something he's to continue to push. But I just don't think I don't see that happening. I think more likely what happens is we get to uh, a couple weeks from now, and there's some type of deal to on the healthcare, the vote later on, or a promise to deal with healthcare or something, or we'll see what happens with that. But I think the week before Thanksgiving, I think things are gonna. That's when I think the government reopens.
All right. Um, there you have it then. Carmine, is there anything else that we did not discuss that you wanted to talk about here on this
That's
front?
pretty much it.
All right. Well, we'll be looking forward to seeing what unwinds this week. If there's anything on Tuesday or Wednesday that you want to pop in and discuss, by all means,
Absolutely,
we're
yeah.
all ears.
Maybe but Monday we'll definitely have a recap show. But if there's anything on Wednesday, like during the hearing that I like that catches my eye, I'll definitely come on.
All right, yeah, and I'm sure me and you will be talking in the backdrop there, so
Yep,
we will be chatting about that without a doubt. So,
sounds
all
good.
right, Carmine. Well, thank you very much as per usual for coming on and talking to us about all this stuff. Always helpful to have you set us straight.
Sounds good. Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, I'll talk to you later, Carmine.